The Soviet government is unable to cope with this disaster on its own, and it asks for foreign assistance. By far, most of the assistance comes from the U.S., and most of that assistance comes from the ARA, the American Relief Administration, under the chairmanship of this man, I think you know who this is, Herbert Hoover. So Hoover, again, setting the table here, most of you know the background, had achieved worldwide fame as the organizer and administrator of large-scale humanitarian relief operations, first in German-occupied Belgium during the Great War, and then as food administrator for the Allies after the armistice of November 1918. In 1919 and 1920, Hoover's ARA successfully executed an extraordinary, enormous food relief campaign across Central and Eastern Europe, first as a U.S. government agency, and then after the signing of the Treaty of Versailles in June of 1919, as a private relief organization. Now, fun fact to know, in 1921, Hoover was also Secretary of Commerce in the Warren Harding administration, in addition to being chairman of this privately run ARA. So a very unusual situation. It was Hoover, as chairman of the ARA, who answered the Soviet call for help that summer. Also important to know, the United States has no diplomatic relations with this new country, Soviet Russia, at this point. So that made the negotiations between the ARA and the Soviet government in Riga, Latvia, in August 1921, particularly delicate. The Riga Agreement is signed on August 20, and Hoover's ARA enters Soviet Russia to fight the Great Famine. So the Riga Agreement, which I'll be referring to a couple more times in the course of the talk, sets the conditions for relief. Hoover's idea, his original intention, was to, and this is what's in the original Riga Agreement, was to feed 1 million Soviet children. But his plan was quickly revised after the American relief workers made their way to the towns and villages in the Volga region and filled their reports with descriptions of piles of tangled corpses. I'll spare you that. There's a lot of it in the exhibit. Of hundreds of thousands of ragged, vermin-ridden, and desperate refugees fleeing the famine zone in search of food. You see a scene at a local railway station here on the Volga. And also of children, the cries of children, many with bellies swollen. As you see here, a couple of the kids have that problem, the edema, swollen from eating grass and leaves and bark and worse. In other words, this was not simply hunger and extreme hunger, which the ARA had been used to dealing with. This was mass starvation.